I got a lot of responses from my email, and so I kind of wanted to walk through this with you a little bit and show you some things that you could do to do a Passover at home, even when you weren't prepared to do a Passover, and we can't go shopping for new stuff. So I thought I'd walk you through it a little bit. The first thing you do is you have a candle, and it could be literally any candle. I know mine is a little bit fancy, but it literally could be a birthday candle, anything that you have, just to bring light. And you're praying for the light of God to enter into your home and start the celebration. So a simple candle of any kind will work. And then you're going to read Exodus 12:26, and that tells you why we're celebrating the Passover. Then the father does fills the cup, and so you do usually use a wine glass, but literally any glass, it doesn't matter. But you're filling the cup, and be forewarned, don't fill them too big because you're going to be drinking 3 of these, so you only want to fill it a little bit to drink it. The first one, the father does the prayer, fill it, you drink it. Because we had kids, we used sparkling cider or just regular grape juice. So either one of those, any fruit from a vine is fine. So white or dark, either one. Okay, so once you're drinking that, you had your first one. Well, before we touch any of the food, we want to make sure we wash our hands, right? So you have the ceremonial cleaning, and this isn't really to wash your hands clean. You can't do the ABCs for, for your whole 20 seconds of washing and things like that. But this is ceremonial, so wash your hands good before you sit down for the Passover. If you have a regular pitcher, just like a water pitcher, that's fine. If you don't, then I thought maybe even a gravy boat can work to wash. You're just pouring the water over the hands into a bowl. And if you don't have that, a simple teacup might work, even a coffee cup, whatever you have, just to do the quick ceremonial cleansing of the hands. And that's what the father does first, and then it gets passed around. The mother kind of helps and walks around and does the ceremonial cleaning of the hands. And then we start with the food. So first thing is a Seder plate. Now most people, if you're not used to it, I do have a fancier Seder plate, but I thought I would show you a way to do this with just coffee cups and a serving plate. So if you have any kind of fancy plate, you can even just put them straight on here, or you can separate them out with coffee cups to make it look a little bit cuter. So the first thing is that the father will pick up the greens, and he will say, "Ask me why we eat the greens." And everybody at the table says, "Why do we eat the greens?" And we eat the greens to remember the life. Green symbolizes life, and we dip it into salt water in the middle. And then we eat the greens to remember the sad life that the Israelites had. Next, I say, the father will pick up the bone and say, "Ask me why we have this bone." And the family at the table will say, "Why do we have the bone?" The bone is to represent the bone that went, the lamb shank that went across the door, the blood that was spread on the doors, so that the spirit would pass over them and not take their lives. And if you don't have, normally it's a lamb. I don't do lamb, so we don't have lamb bones. But even if you don't have some kind of roasted animal, whether it's lamb or maybe you have a T-bone, I don't know. You can even use tin foil. Just make it in the shape of a bone and put it in there, because again, this is just ceremonial. Okay, so they ask, why do they eat the bone? And the father explains why. And then the third thing is, I'm going to move this out of the way so I don't knock it over. Then he picks up matzah, and most of the time the matzah is in this little envelope, and there's 3 pieces, and there's 3 different slots for it. But I thought of this way to make the matzah covered, and you just use 2 towels. So the first towel is laid down. I have the plate underneath. The first towel is laid down, and then you lay the second one over it. Put the second piece of matzah. Fold that over, put the third piece of matzah, and then fold this over. And now we've got these nice little pockets for our matzah to sit in. And the question will be, the dad's gonna hold it up and say, ask me why we eat the matzah. And the family says, why do we eat the matzah? And then you could read in Exodus 13, 7 and 8, and it talks about that they had no time to wait for the bread to rise. They had to cook the bread quickly and leave so that they could escape Egypt. So they had no time for waiting for the bread to rise. And that's why we eat the matzah at this time. And he will leave it out. Then the next part is that we're gonna hold up the bitter root. Now, most of the time I use horseradish with this, but if you don't have horseradish, you can use onions chopped up. Whew, those are strong onions. I prefer the horseradish, and that's usually traditionally what the bitter herb is, but if you don't have it, maybe you have an onion around, even a red onion, whatever, something to make it not taste so great to eat it raw. So we're gonna have the bitter root, and the family asks, why do we eat the bitter root?
Why do we eat the bitter root?
And the bitter root is to represent the bitter life and the hard life that they had. And then the father will explain that this next one, which is in my next video of how to make this, it's called, I say all these words so horribly, but it's Horoseth, something like that. My Hebrew is horrible. Anyway, it's to represent the mortar that they used to hold, that the slaves had to use to build on the back, to build Egypt. So then you're going to ask one last question about the Seder plate, and it is, ask me why we have the roasted egg. Why do we have the roasted egg? And the roasted egg is to represent the new life that the Israelites had, and also we use it to represent the new life that Jesus has given us. So that is the special little plate that you can use. After you ask about the egg, then we take the second cup of drink, and again you're going to fill it up. There's going to be a prayer that the father would say about how we all are partaking in this, because God has had a part in all of our lives, and just like he saved the Israelites, he's also saved us from slavery. And then we sing, now they would sing something different, but what we sing in our home is I've been redeemed. Their song is about redemption, but this is I've been redeemed by the blood of the lamb. Perfect for the blood of the chicken bone. Anyway, we sing that, and then before we drink this, we then label and talk about the powers of God, and how God was so powerful, and how he got them, that the Pharaoh would not listen, and so he sent very powerful plagues to allow the Israelites to escape. So we stick our finger in, and as we say each one of the plagues, we dot the plate with our wine. So we stick it in and say frogs and lice and boils and darkness and locusts, and you'll have to look it up. I don't remember them all by heart. But the last one is death. And we make the 10 dots on our plates. And then we thank God for saving us, and we drink the second cup. And then the father will take the matzah, and he will break it and give it to everybody. And they take a little bit of the horseradish or onions, and a little bit of the horoseth, the the nuts and honey mix, and they put it together, make a little sandwich, and they eat it. It's just to remind you of the difficulties in life that they went through. So after you do that, then you're gonna have your meal. That's gonna be the end part. You can quickly say a prayer for the meal, and you'll go ahead and bring over the food that's ready, that hopefully you already have ready, and everybody eats the meal. During the meal, this second piece of matzah in here is cracked in half, and one of the halves is taken and hidden somewhere in the house for the children to find. And it's kind of like a scavenger hunt for them to find it, and traditionally they get $1 or something for the one who finds it. Also, before you actually eat your meal, you will open the door and you will call out for Elijah or for anyone who is hungry and needs food, and invite them in. It's ceremonial. Nobody's going to be at your front door. If Elijah shows up, let me know. But it's just a way to show that we always want to be giving to anyone who's in need. So opening the door and inviting anyone that's in need. Then you sit down and you eat your meal, and after the meal you recline and you sit back and you enjoy your blessings. And as soon as the Father sees that everybody is reclined, he will then do the second half of the Seder, which is where Jesus would have taken this last piece of matzah from the bottom. And notice how the matzah has these stripes in them and how the matzah is pierced. And this represents to us as Christians the striping, the beating that Jesus would have went through to give his life, and the piercing of his side to prove that his life had been given for us. He takes this and he breaks it. This is part of the Passover, to break it and to give it again to everyone. But when Jesus did this, he gave it to them and said, "Do this in remembrance of me." Now this last piece is actually, it represents when the high priest gave wine and bread to Abraham. And so Jesus is now referring to himself as the high priest. And so you can read in Matthew 26, 27, where he says, "Do this in remembrance of me." This is exactly the last piece that he would have been talking about. And then if you read in Hebrews 5 through 7, you will see where he's referred to as the high priest. After you do that, you take your glass of wine, you're raising it, and you're saying, "Praise you, O Lord, King of the universe," and you drink this. And then your last scripture would be in Numbers 6:24 through 26. And once you finish that, then you say, "Next year in Jerusalem," and everybody says, "Next year in Jerusalem," and we all give big hugs, and that is the end of your Seder. I like to use our old family Bible that Eugene and I got when we first got married. It's shown a lot. It's had a lot of love during the many years, but hopefully that helps you. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to follow all the perfect steps. It's just a way to remember what God had done for us and the last meal that Jesus actually had. So I hope you have fun with it. And my next video, I'll show you just some simple ideas for food for your actual meal. All right. God bless.